Hi there. I'm Jolene. It stings when your own family laughs at your dreams, especially when that family is your big sister. At my company launch, she didn't just mock me. She made sure everyone in the room knew exactly how little she thought of me. But what she didn't realize was that the paycheck she bragged about cashing, it had my signature at the bottom. How did it get that far? And what happened when the truth finally hit her? The warm evening air buzzed with excitement as I stepped into the launch event downtown. The venue gleamed with soft golden lighting, banners of Guardian Tech Solutions hanging proudly overhead. Everything I had worked for the long nights, the sacrifices, had led to this moment. I adjusted the hem of my blazer, took a breath, and scanned the crowd. That's when I saw her, Celia, laughing in a circle of well-dressed executives, her posture relaxed, her head tilted just so to draw attention. My stomach tightened before I could stop it. After all these years, after everything, she was here. Of course she was. Celia never missed a chance to watch me stumble. I moved toward the backstage area, determined to stay focused. This was my night, not hers. But just as I reached the curtain, Celia peeled away from her group and intercepted me with that same condescending grin she'd perfected back in high school. "Wow, look at you," she cooed, her voice dripping with faux admiration. "Starting your own little project. That's cute." I held my smile, though it burned. "Thanks for coming," I said simply, stepping aside to avoid her touch. My fingers tightened around the folder in my hand, but I refused to let her see it. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Don't worry if no one notices. It's tough being the underdog." Her perfume was the same cloying sweetness I remembered, and it choked me now. I refused to flinch. Instead, I locked eyes with her and gave a polite nod, like she was a stranger at a cocktail party, not my sister, not the woman who had spent a lifetime making sure I knew exactly where I ranked. Celia lingered a second longer, waiting for a reaction. When none came, she flicked her hair, smirked, and sauntered back toward the VIP lounge, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. I exhaled slowly, feeling the old familiar knot in my chest. It wasn't fear, it wasn't even anger. It was something colder, sharper, a recognition. Some battles never end, they just shift forms. I pulled out my phone, skimming over the final notes for my speech. Names blurred past investors, journalists, influencers. Celia's face popped into my mind again, uninvited, a cruel reminder of how fragile public perception could be. One wrong step, one bad headline, and everything I'd built could slip away. But not tonight. Tonight was mine. I squared my shoulders and headed toward the main hall, feeling the weight of history pressing down and the thrill of knowing I was about to make my own. Jolene, the overlooked little sister, was long gone. I followed the flow of guests into the main conference hall, my heels clicking quietly against the polished floor. The stage was set with sleek black banners, spotlights sweeping the crowd as they settled into their seats. I stayed close to the side entrance, heart steady, willing myself to block out the lingering memory of Celia's smug laughter. The master of ceremonies took the stage, welcoming everyone with the kind of smooth charm you only hear at high-profile launches. I exhaled, centering myself. I had survived worse than a few snide comments and jealous glances. This moment was about my work, my vision, no one else's. A soft buzz rippled through the crowd as the MC wrapped up the opening remarks. I was moments away from being introduced. I smoothed my blazer, adjusted the mic clip to my lapel, and steadied my breathing. I could do this. I would do this. And then it happened. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Celia sidle up near the stage, pretending to chat casually with the tech crew. Before anyone could stop her, she snagged a spare microphone, flicked it on, and turned toward the audience with a wide grin. "Wow," she said, her voice dripping with sugar-coated malice. "Isn't it inspiring? These days, all you need is a laptop, a little free time, and bam, you're a CEO." Laughter exploded across the room, not the good kind, the sharp, uncomfortable kind that stings long after the sound fades. A few people winced, others exchanged awkward glances. I stood frozen backstage, every muscle taut, feeling the blood drain from my face. Celia beamed, soaking in the attention. She tossed her hair like she'd just told the world's funniest joke, then sauntered off stage as if nothing had happened. The mic squealed slightly as the crew scrambled to mute it. I clenched my fists at my sides, nails digging into my palms. Every fiber of my being screamed to storm out there, to call her out for the petty, jealous coward she was. But I didn't move. I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me rattled. Instead, I closed my eyes for a brief second, forcing the humiliation down like a bitter pill. I mentally ripped up the original version of my speech, the one filled with modest gratitude and soft-spoken hope, and started building a new one, sharper, clearer, stripped of any trace of apology. They were going to see who I was, not the awkward little sister Celia had always painted me to be. The MC, clearly rattled himself, shuffled back to the microphone and cleared his throat. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and CEO of Guardian Tech Solutions, Miss Jolene Carter. I inhaled deeply, feeling the heat of the spotlight waiting for me just beyond the curtain. As I walked toward the stage, the whispers buzzed like hornets around me. I didn't let them touch me. Not this time. My hands were steady. My heart was steel. Celia thought she could humiliate me into silence. She had no idea what she had just unleashed. The applause from the introduction still echoed as I moved behind the stage partition. I kept my pace even, measured, letting the noise fall away like dust shaken from a jacket. I could feel the heat of judgment pressing down from the rows of VIP seats. I could feel Celia smirk, even without looking. Let her think she'd rattled me, let her gloat. It wouldn't last. The cool blast of air conditioning brushed against my skin as I adjusted the mic pinned to my blazer. The conference crew gave me a thumbs up from the wings. I nodded back, feeling the hum of energy coil tight in my spine, not from fear, from readiness. I paused for a moment, the memories creeping in without warning. I was 15 again, hunched over the garage workbench, soldering a clunky robotics project I had designed from scratch. Celia had walked in, makeup perfect, hair curled just right for prom pictures. She'd laughed when she saw the mess of wires and half-built circuits. "Seriously? You think anyone cares about this nerd junk?" Shed said, the same way someone would comment on a dead bird. Then there were the family dinners, those exhausting Sunday marathons where Celia would commandeer every conversation with stories of her internships, her scholarships, her dating life that was somehow always better than mine. I had learned early to smile and chew my food quietly, hoping no one would notice me. The stitches of those old wounds pulled tighter now, but they didn't break. They were part of the fabric I had reforged myself with. I pulled my shoulders back as I stepped closer to the edge of the stage. Somewhere near the VIP lounge, Celia's voice floated over the crowd, high and bright. "Big things happening," she chirped to a small group huddled around her. "Locked down a major contract this week. Marketing expansion for a top tech firm. Moving up in the world, you know?" Her entourage laughed on cue. I caught the sly glances she tossed toward the stage. The old narrative, Celia the winner, Jolene, the footnote. Only, she didn't know. She didn't know that the marketing department she bragged about partnering with had, 2 weeks ago, been bought outright by Guardian Tech Solutions. By me. I didn't move, didn't blink. I let a small smile settle on my lips, subtle enough not to draw attention, but satisfying enough to taste. She could sell all the half-truths she wanted tonight. Tomorrow, reality would hit her like a freight train. As the event coordinator signaled it was almost my turn to go on, I double-checked the lapel mic, smoothing down the fabric of my jacket. The audience buzzed louder now, a restless energy growing as they waited for something real, something new. I was ready to give it to them. If only Celia knew whose signature would be funding her next paycheck. The crew motioned for me to step forward, and the bright stage lights flared across the polished floor ahead. I moved toward the podium with purpose, heels clicking steady against the hush settling over the audience, everything sharpened into focus, the outlines of cameras, the subtle buzz of smartphones being tucked away, the expectant faces turned in my direction. I was just about to cross the final few feet when I heard her voice slice through the air like a blade. "Wait a second," Celia trilled, hijacking the moment with an exaggerated laugh. In a flash, she slipped past the stagehands and seized the microphone, her faux charm dripping like syrup. Before the next speaker graces us, she drawled, I just want to say how proud I am of my baby sister. I mean, these days anyone with Wi-Fi and a dream can call themselves a CEO, right? A ripple of uncomfortable laughter rolled through the crowd. The MC froze, half lifting a hand as if to intervene, but Celia plowed on without missing a beat. I remember when Jolene couldn't even keep a Tamagotchi alive, she said, grinning broadly. And now look changing the world, one cute little app at a time. More laughter, sharper this time. Some guests exchanged uneasy glances. Others hid their smiles behind cocktail glasses. I caught one investor I recognized stiffen slightly, his expression flickering with doubt. My stomach clenched, but outwardly, I stayed perfectly still. Every instinct screamed at me to rip the mic from her hand, but I didn't. I couldn't afford a scene. Not tonight. I lifted my chin and met Celia's eyes across the stage. No smile, no scowl, just a steady, deliberate stare, a tilt of my head that said everything she needed to hear. Enough! For the briefest second, something in her smirk faltered. She let out a forced chuckle and, with exaggerated flourish, handed the microphone back to the stunned MC, who mumbled an awkward thanks. Celia sashayed off the stage like she had just won an award, basking in her own petty triumph. But she didn't realize. The rules had changed. I wasn't the timid shadow she used to walk over. I was the storm she never saw coming. I adjusted my blazer, brushed a stray hair behind my ear, and stepped into the glare of the lights. The air was thick with tension, and yet strangely everything inside me had gone still. I could almost hear my own heartbeat, steady and sure. This wasn't just a speech anymore. This was a line being drawn. The spotlight hit me full in the face as I took my place at the podium. A low hum of conversation fizzled into silence. I rested my palms lightly on the edge of the podium, feeling the fine wood beneath my fingertips, and offered a slow, easy smile. No tremble in my hands, no quiver in my voice. I owned this moment. No one could steal it from me. Good evening, I said, my voice carrying steady and warm across the room. Thank you all for being here tonight. It's not every day you get to see the beginning of something new, something real. I saw Celia in the second row, legs crossed, arms folded, a gleam of triumph still flickering in her eyes. Let her enjoy it. She had no idea what was coming. I founded Guardian Tech Solutions, I continued, not because I had the flashiest idea or the loudest voice in the room, but because I believed in the power of resilience, in the power of those who build quietly, while others are busy chasing applause. A few heads nodded. I caught a flicker of unease cross Celia's face. I paced the stage slowly, the way I had practiced, letting my words breathe. The tension in the room thickened with every step, every beat of measured silence. And speaking of building, I said, pausing just long enough to feel the anticipation tighten, I'm thrilled to announce that Guardian Tech has completed a major strategic acquisition. Murmurs swept through the audience. A few weeks ago, I went on, we finalized the purchase of one of the most promising marketing divisions in the tech space, formerly part of Vanguard Strategies. I saw it happen in real time, the way Celia's mouth froze mid-smirk, her hand faltering halfway to her champagne glass. A visible ripple passed through her posture like a current. Vanguard Strategies, the very department Celia had been bragging about all evening. I let the silence stretch, savoring the delicious, irreversible shift. Innovation isn't just about invention, I said, voice calm, deliberate. It's about vision, and sometimes it's about recognizing the value of the people others overlook. The murmurs grew louder. I saw investors leaning in, journalists scribbling frantically, heads turning toward Celia with dawning realization. And through it all, I simply smiled, the kind of smile that says, checkmate. The first crack in her armor appeared almost immediately. Celia shifted in her seat, shoulders stiffening, mouth twitching in a desperate attempt to reassemble her trademark smirk. I stayed silent, letting the tension bloom. No need to rush. The truth had already done most of the heavy lifting. She couldn't help herself. With a forced chuckle, Celia rose from her seat, smoothing her designer dress as she snatched a microphone from a startled technician. There's clearly been a little miscommunication, she said, her voice pitched high enough to betray the panic tightening her throat. Nothing's finalized yet. These tech deals, paperwork gets messy. A few scattered chuckles floated through the crowd, but they didn't sound kind. They sounded wary. From my vantage point under the spotlight, I caught the skeptical glances being exchanged among the investors, the furtive whispers among the journalists. Celia was sinking, and the room could smell it. I waited until her voice trailed off into a hollow, awkward laugh. Then I stepped forward, lifting the clicker in my hand. "No confusion," I said evenly, clicking to the next slide. The giant screen behind me lit up with the Guardian Tech Solutions logo, paired with an official press release. Guardian Tech Solutions finalizes strategic acquisition of Vanguard Strategies Marketing Division. The date? 2 weeks ago. The signatures, bold and unmistakable, mine at the top. A collective gasp rippled across the audience. Phones shot up to capture screenshots. A few reporters practically leapt to their feet, scribbling notes with furious urgency. I didn't gloat. I didn't even glance at Celia. I simply moved to the next slide, a live feed from Guardian Tech's website, prominently displaying the acquisition announcement. No rumors, no pending negotiations. A done deal. The truth wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was final. It was public. It was devastating. I lowered the clicker, letting the evidence hang there like a guillotine. Celia stood frozen in place, mic dangling uselessly from her hand. Her mouth opened, then closed again. For the first time all night, no slick comeback, no sugar-coated jab, no desperate spin could save her. The silence that fell over the room was deafening. The room didn't breathe. It hung there, suspended in a strange limbo of disbelief, shock, and something else. Something Celia hadn't anticipated. Doubt. I didn't linger on stage. I stepped away, leaving the truth to do its quiet, irreversible work. As I moved into the cocktail area, the clink of glasses and soft murmurs filled the dimmer space. The smell of champagne and fresh-cut flowers was suddenly too sweet, too heavy. Small groups formed instantly, orbiting around hushed conversations and side glances. I could feel it, the shift, a new current flowing beneath the polite surface. But Celia wasn't finished. I caught her out of the corner of my eye, weaving through the clusters of guests like a shark scenting blood. Her smile was brittle now, her laugh too loud as she sidled up to investors, board members, anyone with influence. "She's ambitious, sure," I overheard her telling a group by the bar. "But acquisitions like that? They don't happen without cutting a few corners. Regulators are going to have questions. Just wait." The words were sugar-coated in concern, but the venom underneath was unmistakable. I didn't react. I sipped my water, nodded at a passing journalist, and kept my breathing steady. Celia's desperation had shifted from silent glares to whispered knives. My phone vibrated in my clutch. A quick glance, a text from a friendly journalist I trusted. "Heads up, Celia's trying to plant stories about shady practices. Already sent a couple of emails out." Of course she had. Still, no panic. I made my way to the event coordinator's booth, requested a quick update through the venue's official communication screens, a tool normally reserved for lost items or schedule changes. Minutes later, every screen around the event lit up. Guardian Tech Solutions confirms full regulatory approval for its recent acquisition. All documentation available upon request. Transparency is not just a promise, it's our foundation. Simple, clean, unshakable. The buzz shifted again. Guests checking their phones, verifying what they'd just seen. A few turned toward Celia now, not with admiration, but with wary distance. She felt it too. Her face paled, the way she shrank into herself just slightly before forcing another too bright smile. But the damage was done, and not to me. The energy in the room had shifted again, but this time it was irreversible. Gone were the curious stares and polite murmurs. What remained now was a sharp, almost clinical detachment, the way you might observe the final act of a slow, inevitable downfall. No one moved to comfort Celia. No one offered her an escape. I adjusted the microphone stand and cleared my throat lightly. The sound snapped a few heads up, pulling what was left of the attention toward me. "I appreciate you all staying," I began, my voice steady, resonant in the half-empty hall. Tonight wasn't just about celebrating a milestone. It was about setting a new standard. The words felt heavier than I'd planned, but right. Necessary. I continued, pacing myself with a calm that felt both foreign and natural. Guardian Tech was built on more than innovation. It was built on trust, transparency, and accountability. And moving forward, we will maintain zero tolerance for any conduct that undermines those principles. I didn't look at Celia. I didn't need to. The ripple effect hit harder when it wasn't directed. In that spirit, I said, effective immediately, Guardian Tech will be severing all business relationships with any parties found engaging in activities inconsistent with these values. A sharp murmur ran through the room. Not loud, just loud enough. I gestured toward the digital screens that had lit up again behind me, this time displaying links to full public documentation, acquisition contracts, regulatory approvals, and, quietly embedded within it all, a detailed compliance report. One that named, without flair or drama, the exact misconduct that had been swirling beneath Celia's polished surface. No accusations, no screaming matches, just facts. Just light cast into places she never thought anyone would look. The final blow didn't come with a slam or a spectacle. It came with a clinical, professional closing of doors. I stepped away from the podium as polite applause, not wild, not celebratory, but respectful, filled the air. Enough to acknowledge a clean end. Celia remained rooted in place, isolated in the center of the swirling aftermath, a statue built on the fragile foundation of appearances. And now those appearances were shattered. I didn't wait for her reaction. I didn't offer a parting glance. Some wars are won not with the sword, but by refusing to fight on their terms. And I had just closed the battlefield behind me. A week later, I sat in my new office, sunlight pouring through the tall windows and pooling across the hardwood floors. Stacks of signed contracts and welcome letters from new partners lined the edge of my desk, tangible proof that the world had moved on, even if some bruises hadn't fully faded. The air smelled faintly of fresh paint and new beginnings. I leaned back in my chair, letting the quiet settle in my chest. No noise, no chaos, just the steady hum of a life rebuilding itself. The news had traveled faster than I expected. Celia's name circulated, but not in ways she had once craved. Words like untrustworthy and high risk started appearing alongside hers in the industry chatter. Firms withdrew partnerships, invitations stopped coming. Some whispered about legal inquiries looming in the background, but I didn't chase those rumors. They weren't my victory to savor. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about what I had built and what I refused to lose again. From across the room, my phone buzzed with updates from the PR team. Interviews requested, keynote offers piling up, venture capitalists asking for meetings. All validation, yes, but none of it filled the part of me that still ached. Because some wounds don't disappear. They don't scream. They just stay quiet, persistent reminders of what survival costs. I stood up and crossed the room to the wide windows overlooking downtown Austin. The city moved below me, fast and bright and unconcerned with old grudges. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. The real victory wasn't in ruining her. It was in refusing to let her define me ever again. I had built something that no whispered insult, no cheap smear campaign could touch because it was real. It was earned, and it was mine. The door to my office opened softly, and my assistant poked her head in. Contract for Vanguard Tech just arrived for final signature, Miss Carter. Thank you, I said, taking the folder from her hands. I sat back down, flipped open the file, and signed my name with a clear, steady hand. As the pen lifted from the paper, I realized the best revenge wasn't destroying her life. It was reclaiming my own. After everything I went through, one truth stands taller than all the noise. You don't have to destroy others to succeed. You don't have to become like the people who tried to break you. Real power, the kind that lasts, is built on integrity, quiet resilience, and the refusal to let bitterness define your story. I learned that winning isn't about crushing someone else. It's about standing so firmly in who you are that no one else's cruelty can move you. And if you're facing your own battles right now, family betrayals, workplace sabotage, moments where you feel small and unseen, please remember this. You are not powerless. Your value isn't decided by the loudest voice in the room. It's decided by your work, your integrity, and the life you build on your own terms. What about you? Have you ever had to walk away from someone you thought would always be in your corner? Or faced a moment where you had to choose between sinking to someone else's level or standing taller than the storm? I'd love to hear your story. If this video touched your heart, leave a 1 inch in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. If it didn't quite hit home for you, I'm still grateful you gave it your time. Tell me why in the comments and where you're tuning in from. Let's connect and share, because sometimes our hardest stories are the ones that teach us how strong we really are. And if you'd like more real, raw, empowering stories like this one, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you'll never miss the next chapter we'll walk through together. Thank you for being here.